Hey, everybody. So, gonna start, I guess. Running just a little late because of lunch, but it's kind of a long one, so I'm just gonna dive into it right now. My name is John Henry Scherck. I'm the CEO and founder of Growth Plays. We're a B2B content strategy agency. We typically work with like mid-stage and late-stage SaaS companies and venture capital firms to use SEO and content as a platform for product marketing and demand gen and audience creation. So, I am here to talk about SEO, but I think when we think about SEO, when you talk to content teams that are doing SEO, they're not generally that excited about it. They think the channel is pretty boring, pretty tactical. It's not like when you ask a content team, like, what are you most excited about and working on in this year? They're not like, oh, keywords and meta tags. Like, that is the last thing that they want to work on. They generally, as companies, view it as like a means to an end. They want more traffic. They know search has traffic, so they're like, let's execute on the channel. And I'd say a lot of companies think the channel is antiquated, and some folks would say that it's dying. But I think if you view the channel as antiquated or the results you're getting from it aren't what they used to be, it's more that the mindset and the approach that you're taking to the channel is antiquated. I want to go over sort of a new mindset shift that we're seeing in search. So the one thing I can say about the channel though is that I think it's pretty risky. Like SEO does use own media, but the distribution for SEO is 100% algorithmic. And when you're playing on someone else's land, there's inherent platform risk. And this is a view of a website that was using generative AI to spin up just a ton of content. It was garbage. It wasn't actually helpful. Google figured out what they were doing, and they turned their traffic off, which was just under 500,000 visits a month, pretty much overnight. So like there is just like inherent risk in the channel, especially if you approach it with an older mindset of just trying to sort of beat the system instead of actually doing something that helps your buyer. So I got my start in SEO probably around like 2009. I got into B2B SaaS in around like 2013, 2014. And it was just a different game back then. Then it was pretty easy to execute because the expectations around content quality were much lower. And it was a lot easier to win market share because there was just less companies competing for the terms that we're all going for. And it led to this system of like really predictable inputs that led to measurable, predictable outcomes. Like if we publish this article, we will get this traffic. If we optimize this page, we will improve our ranking. And it led to really like a cost benefit analysis and direct attribution of what do we do and what do we get out of it. And it was also really effective at just ripping demos out of the internet. There was not as much SaaS as there is today. People were actively searching for solutions, and I think the internet was less fragmented, like there was less attention on social at this point in time. And really for any company looking to do SEO, it was foolish to not invest in it. I'd say every company I worked in, from executives to the board, wanted to do better in organic search, understood its value, and knew it could be high ROI. But I think a lot has changed. So if we look at like where B2B SEO has been over the last decade, in 2014, it was like, let's start it out. We're seeing some progress. And then a few years later, it's like, let's double down. We're having a record-breaking year. And then say 2019 is coming around, more and more people are switching to SaaS solutions, and you're seeing record amounts of traffic each and every month. And then 2020 happens, and we're pretty much like locked indoors, but there's a lot of budget. There's a lot of people looking to buy. There's a ton of people in market, and everyone is getting information online. There's less in-person events, so a lot more budget went to digital, and a lot more pipeline was created via digital. And then 2022 happened. And the traffic didn't go away, but the pipeline that usually followed that traffic did. And I'd say just the overall channel became less efficient because there was reduction in budget, reduction in force. There was contracts that contracted. That was a little bit of a double speak. But really, I think now we're looking at like what's next. Like what do we do? How do we get back to where we were with the SEO channel? And I think that there is a way to get back to where we are with SEO, but it's not going to be by doing more of the same tactics that got us to where we are today. We're kind of scratching our heads. I think the future of SEO is really using it to build an owned audience so you can cut out the algorithm and just go direct. So first I just want to like lay down some ground facts around, or some truths around SEO. I do think we've kind of gotten greedy when it comes to organic search. And the reason why is because a lot of the folks that want to invest in organic search way up in the company, they're not in the trenches doing the work. And they still view it in this like 2014 lens of how content was cheap, acquiring traffic was cheap, and converting it was fairly easy. Like the cost of a paid click has gone way up for the same term over the last 10 years. Cost of ads through Meta or LinkedIn, they've all gone up, but we're all kind of viewing SEO as this like nearly free or almost free channel where we can do very minimal content marketing, get a lot of traffic, and convert it. And this post from John Miller, this is a really valuable post. If you haven't read it, I'd check it out. I made a little bit.ly link for it. It basically talks about how the old playbook, and this is something that AK talked about on stage, I think probably a lot of folks have talked about today, The old playbook doesn't work anymore, but there's a really interesting stat in here from a think tank that about basically like out of your TAM, 5% of companies are in market. And I think with your SEO traffic, it's honestly like 5% of it is potentially looking to buy, and that leaves the other 95% that doesn't want to be converted into a sales cycle. And most companies that we talk to before we started working with them, they are typically viewing it as like just a way to harvest hand raisers, and they ignore all the folks that aren't ready to talk to sales. So some other things just to kind of get out of the way. If you are operating in an established market, you need to be an established business. The channel is too saturated to go after like big competitive terms now if you are a newer business. This is a look at the search results for the term project management software. In the right is the amount of links that point to those individual pages. So the amount of links pointing to those pages, I don't think there's anything under 220 on there. That's more than like most seed stage and some Series A companies have pointing to their website entirely. Like the idea of that you're going to catch up to these saturated markets, it's not the right play. It's not the right channel to attack. We often tell companies to wait longer until they're more mature and they can layer on this type of performance marketing onto a stronger brand. However, if you're creating a new category or operating in an emerging market, SEO definitely still makes sense. This is a term, internal developer portal. It is like a Gartner paper that came out a year ago that literally the category was just created. And if you look, like, yeah, there's a few outliers in there, but there's things with like 1 or 2 links pointing to the page. That's something where you could take over that entire topic. So there's still a lot of room for search, but going after these established markets doesn't really make sense. And I think just kind of the state of where SEO is today, Google currently rewards content that is similar to what already exists, and it also rewards brands that it already trusts. It doesn't really like taking chances on new ideas or new brands. And it also likes giving people exactly what they want. It doesn't like challenging the user and telling them to think about something in a different way. It's very big into instant gratification and feeding bias. And the other thing that I'd say is just kind of a truth about SEO is like we're seeing less traffic for certain terms that we've helped brands own year over year. So the search results, the layout has changed. There's less clicks coming to organic. And this really goes to the mindset shift that the value of a visit needs to go way up. I think we're very cool with letting 98% of the traffic bounce after getting their answer. And we need to treat that traffic just as valuably as we treat cost per click traffic from AdWords or Meta or LinkedIn. And this is a tool, talking about how it rewards everything that's the same. This is a tool called ClearScope. We use it a ton. It's a great tool. What it'll do is it'll go out and grab the first 30 articles that rank in search, and it'll run them through some really basic AI. And it'll tell you the ideas that actually exist in those top 30 articles. And if you include those ideas in your content, you will rank better because Google doesn't like taking chances on new ideas. And the thing is, though, is this creates this sea of sameness problem where everything in the search results looks the exact same. And if you use this tool, it'll actually be like, hey, you left some stuff out. You got to work this in. So it is going to push you to create kind of like a carbon copy of what else is out there. And this is what's led to people basically being dissatisfied with Google search. And I think that quote, I'm not going to read it word for word, but it's basically about Google being like a dying mall and how you go there, you don't know why you went there, you're not getting what you want. This is a post from Dimitri Breton. He talks about how he appends like Reddit or Stack Overflow to the end of his search so he can go to a site he actually trusts. Someone at Google clearly read that post because now we're seeing this discussions and forums thing pop up, which mainly features Reddit, very high up in the search results. So this is why we can't really have tools like ClearScope because they push us to just do the lowest amount of investment possible to get the maximum ROI at the stake of alienating the user. So my bet, and where I'm kind of gearing my company, is there's going to be a steady decline in the effectiveness of traditional SEO. And when I talk about traditional SEO, I mean literally making a mishmash of whatever's on the first page of Google, trying to carbon copy it, and not really thinking about how can we help the user, how can we help the buyer, how can we change how they think. And I also think we're going to see less traditional SEO traffic. AI is absolutely going to change the way we all search, and I think it will send less traffic to the website, to our sites over time. And again, that's why I'm saying the value of a visit is going to go up, because the people who actually come through to our websites are going to be much more engaged than the folks who just want a quick definition. So this is a look at traffic to OpenAI. They did 1.8 billion visits according to SimilarWeb last month. It's still really early for these tools. Google did 85.5 billion. So it's about 45x the traffic right now, longer time on site, and Google is definitely sending more traffic. I think OpenAI is working on sending more traffic. They're not really there yet. But regardless of how much traffic Google has, if we're number one on a list of 10 blue links that all say the same things, it's going to have diminishing returns very quickly, and consumers and buyers are going to get sick of it. So if your content is the same as everyone else's, it's not going to generate meaningful results for your business because it's not meaningfully differentiated. The amount of times that I've sat in a room talking about messaging and positioning and how we can differentiate from competitors, hours and hours of my life. The amount of time we thought about how to differentiate content is maybe like a 15-minute conversation brands have on their own. So we are all competing in a channel that does reward sameness. Google doesn't like taking chances on wildly different ideas. And because of that, we're afraid to stand out and invest more in the channel. We want to just do the lowest amount of investment possible to get the highest ROI possible. Guy I used to work for, brilliant SEO, Will Reynolds, has this post on the sea of sameness problem. It is a phenomenal post. I recommend y'all read it if you are trying to execute on search. They had a post that ranked for SEO RFP questions. And Will looked at it, and he's like, this is bullshit content. And he changed the entire thing. He made it about like a post-AI world, and he made it much better. And they lost some rankings, but the people who actually went and engaged with that content were much more attracted to their brand, interested in working with this company. And they did actually get the rankings back. They bucked the trend of just copying else what is the search results, really thought about it from like a first principles perspective, and made meaningfully better content that now stands out and does get more clicks, which is interesting, kind of bucks the trend of everything being the same. And there's a question that Will asks in his post, if you deleted your brand's SEO content from the web, would anyone miss it? And if the answer is no, like, you should really think about why you're investing in the channel and how much you're spending on it and what you expect to get out of it. Because if the same as everyone else is, how are you going to benefit from it? Modern buyers, they don't really want content written by generalists and juniors. And for some reason, whenever we start talking with a company and we ask them, okay, who's going to start working on this content? Who's going to own the channel? Like, oh, we just hired this new person. They know nothing about our industry. We think this is like a great thing for them to get trained up on. And that's the exact opposite approach, because I don't think you all want to be reading things from generalists and juniors either. You want to be learning from experts. People want real firsthand experience of how to operate and how to think about their market and what to buy. They don't want to hear basically like cobbled together search results from someone with an English degree who's a year out of school. So this is a post from a company based here in New York called Superblocks, and they compete with a company called Retool. And if you look at this post, if you actually read it, the nuance and the understanding of the space is so clear. And they have this competitive sort of grid. And if you look at it, it's like not what's on G2 Crowd. It's not what's on Software Advice. It's written by someone like build API endpoints with workflows, an intuitive visual builder for business logic. It's someone who deeply knows the space. Jesse, their product manager, actually wrote that post. So it's the guy building the product who wrote that. And this is what people actually want. And if you do search Retool Alternative, it ranks very highly for the post. It is by far the best thing out there, and it kind of blows everything else in the search results away. So the thing though is like SEO, I view it as a landing pad. And if all you can do is send people to more SEO content, like what is articles and best practices and listicles, I don't think the channel is going to work for you very well. There's this concept called barbecue content, and I kind of view the two as complementary but very different. So barbecue content's like if you were at a barbecue with a bunch of other marketers, what would you actually be talking about? And I'm guessing it's not like what is marketing or like marketing best practices. It is like nuanced, complex ideas that don't align to like a single keyword. They're vague and complex, and they need to be hashed out. That's that barbecue content which can't get algorithmic distribution. So you can use SEO to get people into this stuff, the sticky stuff, the stuff people actually want to be reading by harnessing algorithms. But it's the SEO traffic on its own that's probably not going to close deals for you. And the thing that I've realized after probably working with, I'd say we probably worked with 150 SaaS companies over the years, there is not, specifically in high ACV accounts, that's usually who we're helping work with, or usually who we're working with. For high ACV industries, there typically aren't enough hand raisers for you to hit your number through organic search. There's not enough people in market to make it work. And even if you try and like jumpstart it, like if you're to use a tool like Clearbit and then outbound email everyone who touched your high intent pages, people are somewhat immune to these like demand gen tactics that are tried and true. Like just like the effectiveness of outbound has gone way down, I think the effectiveness of like standard DG tactics have also gone way down across the board. And if you're trying to squeeze demos out of your top of funnel traffic right now, it could work, but I don't think it's going to work much longer. Like I really think things are changing, and people just don't want to get in sales cycles. Buyers want to remain anonymous longer and longer. And if all you can do on your website is either demo or bounce, people are going to bounce. Like if I sign up to go on a demo for anything for our company, I know I'm going to buy it already. I'm not like feeling it out. I've done a ton of research online, and the time I engage sales, I'm pretty much closed won. Audience development can get you in front of your buyer before they even know that they're problem aware. And I want to talk about a company, Fanoa. Fanoa is, it's possibly in the driest space we've ever worked in. Fanoa is indirect tax automation. So if you are like Uber and you've got drivers all over the world, or if you're like any kind of marketplace really, you have to send a bunch of forms to the different countries that you're operating in so they can tax the people appropriately. Fanoa's content strategy is not boring though. They harness sort of like 3 prongs. They have breaking news, evergreen resources, and they have a meme guy. And the meme guy kind of like, he ties it all together. So the breaking news, it's tax space, highly regulated, new regulations come out. So whenever there's something new, like Romania postpones its e-invoicing fines, or Belgian e-invoicing mandate is set to go live at a certain date, they publish that as quickly as possible. They kind of operate, not like a news organization, but just like a feed of updates around tax regulations. And they've got really good evergreen content, like this guide to doing business for businesses with customers in Austria. It goes over like the different rates, the things they need to be accountable for, the different like file formats they need to send the taxing information through. They also have some like, I'd say more standard, but legitimately helpful SEO content. And one thing about Fanoa, their actual tax experts wrote all the content. So they have a team of tax experts who are speaking about this stuff from firsthand knowledge, from actually having to file these forms and deal with these regulations instead of just getting like farmed out to a junior. And then they got Aiko, and Aiko is a really cool dude. He used to run tax technology at Uber. He's now the director of tax technology at Fanoa. And the thing about Aiko is he's legitimately funny. And so I haven't seen Dune, so I can't really tie this one together. But if you look at his memes, like they are so niche, and yeah, it's like 140 engagements, which is not like the most ever, but their TAM is small, and they are targeting a very specific audience of indirect tax managers. And if you look at what's in the comments, it is like exactly the people they want to be getting in front of, and they love his memes. They like. That is good. Like head of the indirect tax director at Activision Blizzard, dream account. Wayfair, dream account. And the other thing that he does is he distributes the SEO content through his memes. Love 40-Year-Old Virgin. It's a great movie. But he is able to use his audience to distribute content, which I think is a lot more valuable if you're familiar with SEO and like link building than like reaching out to someone and be like, hey, I saw you wrote a blog and I've got a blog too, and could you mention your blog in my blog? This is way more modern, and this is getting the content in front of the people that they actually want to read it. And this leads to kind of a flywheel of their content getting amplified by the people that they actually want reading it. And all of this leads back to a newsletter that ships out that newsworthy content. So whenever there's a regulation change, they let you know immediately. So they get it out in search. It does, so example right here about a rate change for Malaysia. When they publish it, it ends up ranking pretty well because they're usually first to market. And the sites that they're competing with are like a Malaysian government site that's publishing on a PDF. So the experience is much better. But all of this leads to people signing up for their newsletter, and to unsubscribe from it, they lose a really valuable news source because the Malaysian government does not have a newsletter about this. So for subscribing to Fanoa and being a part of Fanoa's audience literally lets you be better at your job. And that's the kind of value that we need to be creating. So Fanoa is using rented channels, search and social, to build an audience of owned tax professionals, or excuse me, to build an owned audience of indirect tax professionals. And this is what I think the future of SEO really will be. It's about leveraging a channel to build an owned audience so you can skip the algorithm altogether and just go direct and send them whatever you want. Send them your barbecue content, send them your video content, and not be reliant every month on the algorithm not changing. I firmly believe if a tax technology company can do this, that anyone can do this. Tax is by far the most boring space I've worked in, and they are making it fun and interesting. Some caveats though, I think if you have to have something to say in order to do this. Like Aiko is very opinionated, he knows the space, he is legit. He's not just the meme guy, he's also the director of tax technology. And you also have to have someone say it. Like I don't think this approach would have been effective if it was the Fanoa brand account publishing all of this. Like it's a guy that you can relate with, spend time with, build a parasocial relationship. He has followers right now. I don't think people really want to follow brands anymore. I think you also need to have a library of own content that isn't just SEO articles and gated webinars and Gartner white papers. There needs to be that barbecue content that people can hang out with and enjoy and engage with and share. And the other thing is, like, you have to be comfortable not just immediately trying to get people that have signed up for your newsletter into a sales cycle. You have to let them chill out, marinate, hang out at the barbecue. This isn't the death of SEO content, no matter how many people online are saying it right now. And I don't think it's the death of content at all, but for content to get real engagement, it needs to be worth your buyer's time. And I think that is what Fanoa is doing. Like, they are actually making something that people want to spend time with, because if they don't have it, they feel like they're missing out and they feel like they're at risk. And to stand out, I think we need to focus on a few things, mainly authenticity and the tactical and the tactile. I'll go over what that means in a second. So it's really about actionable content. So less of this, like, what is this concept, and more like, change how your audience operates and how they go about their job, give them process and the ability to actually follow something end to end to improve how their business is running, lean into firsthand experience from people who really know what they're talking about versus farming it out to the most junior person on the team. I also left this out of here, but tools, things that actually help people analyze, assess, get information for free, and then entertain and inform. And I think there's some misconceptions about how modern buyers search, and I realize not everyone in every company would be cool with this, but I would recommend if you are selling into a buyer like yourself, like if you are selling MarTech, go through your Chrome for the last 30 days and look at what you search for. If you're selling into accounting professionals, look at what the finance team is searching for. So this is a look at some searches from my search history. So I was trying to turn a transcript into a text file. Old Google Analytics data is getting deleted, so I was looking for how to save it down. I was working on some indexation stuff, so I wanted to test a robots.txt file. I was looking at accessibility issues. I wanted a checklist for small business tax deductions, and I was trying to set up user ID tracking in Webflow with GA4. Like, that is very jobs to be done. It's not like what is marketing or link building best practices. It's like, how do I actually do the work? And there are some things that I've searched for that are more like informational. And it's things that are in emerging categories like RAG versus context window or model poisoning, which are two generative AI ideas, or what is a W8BEN, which is a way to do taxation with international contractors. So those are things like if there was a newsletter around how marketers can harness AI or how to better manage freelancers across the globe or how to better manage company IT, because I do that as well. That's all stuff that I'm not ready to buy. I'm not looking to buy it all, but if someone can consistently provide value, I will follow along with them for the long term. And triples is best. But does this matter if Google's going to shift to a generative AI interface? Or let's say like Google loses market share to OpenAI and Perplexity. Those models still have to feed off of original content. They're not publishers, they're not creating their own stuff. And if you are willing to be meaningfully different, if you are willing to have your own ideas, if you're willing to buck the trend, the model's not just gonna regurgitate it and not cite you, because the models don't wanna take risks. They wanna point back to where they're going. They're working on it right now, they're citing more links. But the idea that like all of our ideas are gonna be taken, it's just fear-mongering, at least in my opinion. So if we answer questions differently, if we create meaningfully different content, Google's not gonna be comfortable copying our ideas. And I think like what is really at risk, I remember when I was a director of sales at a former SEO agency, we got a call one day from a company and Google had started putting like time zones, like what time is it in this city when it's this time in this city. And they were like, how do we get this back? I was like, we are not, like we are done. And I think for anything where it's just very deterministic, where it's like, how do you boil an egg? How do you tie a tie? That is stuff that I do think is at risk. I do think Google will own those results because it's very obvious how to do those things. But for anything like how to staff for a GTM function or how to fix things in Marketo or how to unfuck Salesforce, that is stuff that Google's not gonna feel comfortable doing because it's complex and it's probabilistic. So I think for a lot of the actual meaningful content, not just the definition content, we're safe. So there is going to be a new bar for B2B content, and it's that it's going to have to be so damn good that it encourages a cult-like following of people who want to subscribe to you and follow you because they get value out of what you provide. And they will keep coming to you direct versus going back to search to answer all of their questions. Thank y'all.